Christian Talk with your hosts, Tony Briscoe and Gary Dotson. We discuss faith, marriage, family, parenting, politics, and mental health, world news, and most of all, faith again. Let's go. Welcome to Message Monday.
What's happening, beautiful people? I miss y'all. It's great to be here on tonight. We have been off for a month. I had to teach for a few weeks. On occasion, quarterly, I teach a technology class. I teach purpose. I teach passion. I teach skill sets for those who want to get into the IT field. And so I had a few Mondays. I was away doing that. And I'll share the rest of the news after prayer. Definitely want to bring some prayer requests. One prayer of thanksgiving for the Lord watching over one of my dear elders and dear mentors, Brother Elder Dr. Donnie Collins. I'm grateful for him. He will be on our show within 2 to 3 weeks to talk about how the Lord has blessed him and his wife with some challenges that he had. I also want to pray for my good friend, brother who has been on this show before, Vondell Singleton. Lost his father suddenly. Vondell Singleton is the founder and executive director of the Champs Male Mentoring Program. So I do want to make sure we send prayers out for Vondell. My sister Anna Lewis, who's had about 4.5 hours of testing lined for today, and some other tests potentially remaining this week. So for all our sick loved ones, all of those who are just not doing well physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of that, we want to keep them in prayer as well. And so also another mentor was lost, remembering Jarvis. There will be a meetup tomorrow at 2127 South Wabash Avenue for remembering a Champs mentee named Jarvis who passed away. That will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. At 2127 South Wabash Avenue. So definitely got some prayer requests out there, family. And so, Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you for this night. We thank you for this Message Monday opportunity. We thank you, Lord, just for the blessings. Be with my co-host. We know that him and his wife are consistently and continually full-time caregivers for an elder. So I pray you be with them as situations change minute by minute with them, that you'll give them strength. For my brother, Vondell Singleton, who has lost his father, very close with his father. I pray for his family. I pray for the grandchildren. I pray for the wife. I pray for the siblings who will miss him, and that you undergird my brother as he goes through this transition of living life without his father, especially during the year of first. I thank you for the testimony of Dr. Donnie Collins and how you brought him through, and looking forward to him coming on to Message Monday to share that message, Lord. And for all of the prayers that were mentioned, for Sister Anna Lewis, that you watch over her. For those who are dealing with a lot of issues, tonight we'll spend some time talking about men's mental health. As a friend of mine posted up, I'm just ready to give up on life altogether. So lots going on, Father, but we commend it all to you. We commend it all to you. We lift it all to you and lay it before your altar. We know that you are an answerer of prayers according to your will. So strengthen us and bless those who will tune in tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Man, what is there to talk about on today? There's a lot. So I do have an agenda. I've been working on a script as I am being trained to do by a dear sister. But I did want to start off that I'm an empty nester. We are empty blesters, but we're empty nesters. We took a long drive to take my daughter away to college, North Carolina, which is another reason I was not on the show, that we needed this time away. I was not prepared for the emotional, psychological toll. Hey, Sister Danae, that this would be. I don't care if you're taking your child 5 miles away to live on campus. I don't care if you're taking your child 200 miles away to live on campus. There's nothing like not having that voice of your child around in the house, especially for parents of one child, right? So I was not ready for that. And there was a time when last week my wife called out for my daughter, and she was like, "Man, she's gone." And I was getting ready to ask my wife one day last week, "Hey, when is baby girl gonna be home?" Right? And so just not even thinking that, dude, you just dropped her off at school. She's not gonna be here probably till Thanksgiving, bro. But it's just dealing with the psychological impact of not having her here. I did write a blog about it. My blog, tonybriscoe.co, not .com, .co. You can go and read that. TONYBRISCOE.co. You can go and read that. I just had to write a poem to express my missing her, but she is away at school, and I'll be talking about this, but I'll bring it up now because it's really relevant. You know, we send our young people away to school. Every city has its problems, so we already know that there's no immunity anywhere that we go. But there was a shooting on my daughter's campus by the student center. Unfortunate. Somebody was shot. They were not killed. They were shot. They were released from the hospital the same night. But the school is beginning to lock down on people who don't belong to the school being on campus after a certain hour. You know, public universities have to keep their campuses open. You can walk through a public university. You can walk on the grounds of UIC if you're here. You can walk on the grounds of University of Chicago if you're here. But there needs to be some serious action across this country in terms of protecting students in schools, around public schools, and around universities. A faculty member, I believe, if the news report on CNN was correct, UNC went on lockdown. University of North Carolina went on lockdown today due to a shooting. I believe a faculty member was killed. At least I believe that's what I heard. I could be mistaken. You can definitely check it out for yourself. Yes, Sister Danae, it's a process. I know you already know this. I know you already know this. But to think about that, so I'm not, I don't like to complain without solutions, right? Because it makes no sense to complain without solutions because it doesn't lead us anywhere. There's no benefit to it. Our young people should be protected on college campuses and our public school systems for K through 12 as well. I think all public employees should be secured. And I don't think our country is in the process of doing what it takes to actually provide safety for citizens. I'm just going to call it what it is, right? I don't think and I'm not talking about gun laws per se, because we get more damage from gun laws than we do from mass shootings. But I will say this. I'm a military man, so you can call me brainwashed. I will not disagree with you because that's what the military does, give you a certain patriotic level that most people won't feel about the country. I will say this. When it comes to protecting children, I'm for a heavy hand. So if you fire off a gun on a college campus and you kill people and you survive, you don't even get to go to trial. You get to go to a special place for the rest of your life. That's it. I know it sounds extremes. I know it's not lined up with the United States Constitution where everybody is due a fair trial. Well, people who are innocent victims don't get a trial at all when they dead. They don't get to go through the process. I'm just saying, if we want to do better at protecting our young people while they're away at school. There was a young lady, she was from Chicago, freshman year, gets killed. Went off to the university, went to North Carolina A&T. She's at an off-campus party. Off campus, not on campus. I want to make it clear. Off-campus party. Fight breaks out. Of course, she gets shot, right? And so when our young people want to be able to participate in things, they have to also make better decisions and better choices on where they go and what parties they go to, right? So my daughter, she went through a whole process with friends and family for these are the parties you can go to. These are the parties you don't go to, and you don't go to parties by yourself. Don't drink nothing. You're too young to be drinking anyway, but in the case you in college and you do, if you get a drink, you get to drink yourself. If you leave that drink down, don't pick it back up, get a new one. Right? These are all the things we got to prepare our young people for while they're away at home. And so when you talk about parents who become empty nesters and send their kids off to school, do we worry? Absolutely. I'm a Christian man. Pray for my daughter every night. But that don't mean I don't have the human feeling of, man, what's going on? And it could be the same here. Here in Chicago, the University of Chicago, 5 robberies were recorded in 10 minutes. 5 at the University of Chicago. Right? Some of my colleagues, after we had a big school event, they were walking home, they got robbed at gunpoint. Right? There has to be something done. And you have to send a message to the criminal element in this country that we're not going to tolerate it. We're not going to tolerate the harassment of postal workers. We're not going to tolerate the harassment of CTA, of public safety, of public systems, bus drivers, train operators, people who run man the stations. That, like, we're not going to tolerate the abuse of these folks. We got to send a stronger message to the criminal element, but maybe one of the goals of the countries is not to send a strong message to the criminal element so we can keep the industrial prison complex running. So that's another thing. Yeah, Eddie, definitely want to talk about that. Matter of fact, Eddie, you know what I'm about to do, don't you? You know I'm about to invite you on. You already know that, so it's coming. Look for my invite. But I do want to say that we're empty nesters and it's a process. How do you, as a married couple, deal with this? You spend your entire life wanting to take care of a person. And then when that person leaves, at least your immediate care, right? You look up and now you're looking at this person who you both have been operating to take care of this child. And the danger of, if you're taking care of that child without taking care of each other in the process, I see why couples, I don't really know them because we've just been spending so much time. Well, I don't have that story. We don't have that story in our marriage because we've spent time together cultivating. We've made sure that we stayed a team, but we're both dealing with this separation of our daughter not being here on an individual level. Right? We're dealing with it on an individual level because it's an individual thing. My wife's feelings are completely different from mine. I don't know what it's like for a child to come out of me. My wife knows what it's like for a child to come out of her. So there's a different attachment that comes with that. And so I just wanted to name that. Yeah. People like, Tony, how you doing? Like, I'm doing how I expected to be doing, separated from my child for the first time, who's going to be gone for a length of time, but who's also been away from me, who's been with me for 18 years of her life. That's a big impact, right? But the preparation that it takes, that's a whole different story. And so did want to share that. I'm going to go ahead and drop some emails real quick, people, so I can get my man Eddie on if he is available. I'm not sure if he's available or not, but I'm going to tag him anyway. I'm hitting your Facebook page right now. And if the wife, if she's not busy, I missed her show tonight because I had to do some training. But if she wants to come on, feel free to bring both of you on. Y'all always invited to come on to this show at any time. So I appreciate you all. But let's get back to my agenda and things I do want to discuss on tonight. So shootings in the country, mall shootings in Naperville, carjackings are happening more and more. The state of Illinois, I believe I read correctly, is suing Kia. Kia, Hyundai, as you know, those are the companies that neglected to put the proper protections in place. And so cars can be stolen with a USB drive if it's a 2016 model or before. And so carjackings have been at a high rate. My understanding also is that insurance companies are raising their rates. There's certain things that the government allows companies to do that just don't make sense to me. They don't make sense to me at all. And this is one of them. A car manufacturer is negligent to save money, and the people end up having to pay the price for it. I've had friends, old friends, high school friends who've had their cars, even after the software upgrade that they did, their cars are still being broken into because the people who are the malefactors, they don't know if the car has been upgraded or not where it can't be stolen. So they're still destroying personal property. Now, if somebody comes outside and sees this happening and pulls out that heat and decides to fire 2 shots center mass and kills them, they're going to go to jail for murder because it's deemed that you can't shoot somebody for stealing your car. But on the same note, like, when are citizens able to protect their investments? That car gets them to work. That car gets their kids to school. So if they don't have that means to provide for their families, it's a hindrance. Now, what they don't tell you with this software upgrade, at least for the Hyundai side, I can't speak for the Kia side, but I think they're the same company. But if you do get the upgrade, they have to cut off your remote starter permanently. Now, that'd be cool if I lived in Atlanta, Florida, some other nice weather places, Arizona, cool. I don't care. But I live in Chicago. Do you know what it's like to go outside to warm up a car when it's 20 below in Chicago? Man, it's cold. But these are the things that our country, our government, I should say, allows to take place. Nobody's looking out for the little man. And don't fall into the smoke screen. All this stuff that's going on with Donald J. Trump, personally, I think it's a waste of time because nobody's going to allow a sitting U.S. president, former sitting U.S. president, to be incarcerated. Y'all ain't gonna like me for this. I'm just gonna say this. I'm a military man. So I wouldn't want to see a president locked up. I'm just gonna call that what it is. But there are changes being made. I'm going to get a financial expert in to talk about some of the changes and laws that are being made that have been enacted by Congress that have been pushed through that's going to change the way we retire by 2034 and beyond. It's going to change the playing field for retirees, what they're doing with the money right now. And so I just wanted to lay some of them things out. A lot of this stuff that we're dealing with in the media, it's a smokescreen to keep us away from the bigger picture. And so Eddie or Tina, if y'all can join, feel free. Eddie, I hit that. I see you active in your mailbox right now. If you don't have time to come on, it's cool, but I at least wanted to put it out there. And so just wanted to mention that to you. What else is going on? Eddie, I need you to look up what's going on with BRICS and the United States government. Please look that up. What's going on with BRICS, the European dollar, I shouldn't even say European dollar. It's almost like, I don't know what kind of dollar it is. It's a unified dollar, but we'll get back to talking about that. I do want to talk about one of the major events in history that took place today, and that was with me looking up this day. This is the March on Washington. This is Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech. We've also got the Emmett Till situation that took place on today as well. But the "I Have a Dream" speech, I sent it to Eddie, Sister Phillips. The "I Have a Dream" speech. I did write a paper on this speech because I don't want to get into the reasons why, because y'all gonna jump on me. I did do. I think it's one of the greatest speeches ever written. Personally, I believe it's one of the greatest speeches ever written because I think it tried to appeal or did appeal to the hearts of humanity. And you got to see who didn't have a heart for humanity. But this "I Have a Dream" speech is very symbolic. And I just want to read some of it because I think it's relevant for us on this day. He starts off, 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, I know there's different thoughts on the Emancipation Proclamation as well. This monumentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. I want y'all to listen to these words, and I want you to see where we are as a country today as you're listening to these words. And when I say where we are, I mean not just Negroes, I mean our world and our country specifically, where we still are today. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. Man, those are the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. How y'all feel about them words? Do they mean anything to you? Do they resonate with you anywhere? Do they seem to impact you at all? How do you feel we've come as a country? And we've come a long way. So let's not get that twisted. I know we've come a long way. I'm sending Miss Tina a link to the stream. I know we've come a long way as a country, but when you think about those words that we just heard, and you get to understand where we've come, you look at it from a different light. Dr. King, we all know he was flawed, so we're not talking about the perfections and his personal indiscretions or whatever those were of the recently released documents that came out by the CIA or the FBI, which they were tailing him anyway because it's weird. Hey, Miss Tina.
Hey Tony, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right, I'm so happy for your daughter and you and your wife. Your daughter is
Thank you.
prospering, and God
Thank you.
kept her despite
Yes.
everything around her.
Yes. 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 I am grateful for the favor of the Lord on that young lady's life and on this on our family. I mean, when I say that the Lord did a work, he did a work. He lifted a burden, and you really don't know the burden that he lifts until you get into a situation and you understand why he did things the way he did. We have had some. I never thought I'd be at a place where I would be running through my emergency fund, but we had some emergencies. That's what the emergency fund was for, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll pick up on that a little later. I do want to get back into this Dr. King speech. Um, I do think it's one of the greatest speeches in the world. I really do. I had some challenges with it as I was studying the speech years ago when I was just, young and really ignorant. But I just, I found some of his words similar to one of the archbishops, and I was just like, well, he just took the archbishop's words and he just made them more beautiful and made them more poignant. I still believe that. But outside of that, when I think about this day and I listen to the speech and I'm reading through its words, where has the Negro grown since this speech? Where are we as a people in your thoughts?
I think that African Americans they're the one culture that really represents all the cultures, because before we all started mixing together and having babies with one another, every culture was individual. It was separate, and in that they had a culture, and that culture was individualized. It wasn't necessarily that they intended for it to be divided. It's just a matter of the fact that after the Tower of Babel, that's just the way things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't to say that we wouldn't all return to the day of old and be one people once again. And I think that African Americans really embody that unity, and that it is necessary for moving forward. And the more we fight against it, we push against it, the more it's obvious that this is in alignment with what we are supposed to do or where we're going, regardless of what, you know, any pushback is. I think all the distractions that we're seeing are just really the pushback against change. So a lot of people that don't like change. Change is inevitable. And this is where we're going with it. And despite the fact that people don't want it or people don't find it lucrative enough in this moment, it doesn't matter. The matter of the fact that this is where we're going. People can keep fighting against it if they want to, but this is where we're going. I don't know if you saw the Olympics, but we taking it in every country. Do you see that? Do you
Like
see that?
we won the shot. Is it the shot puck we won? The sister got gold. The sister got gold in the like. No, it wasn't a shot. What's the one they throw? You know the
puck, yeah, the disc throw, yeah, everything.
Throw.
And we represent every country.
Yeah.
But in every country, you see that they trying to kick us out and tell us, be underfoot. Don't represent unless you in the Olympics. Then you can represent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like Jesse Owens, right? Mm-hmm. He could go run track, defeat Hitler, but couldn't come back home and eat a hamburger anywhere he wanted to. He couldn't come back home and sit in a white establishment. And then when he did, I believe they gave him spoiled meat. So it's like, just the treatment of blacks who have laid our lives down for this country hand over foot. Where you have some white men who came back from Vietnam who were able to be very prosperous. And then you had a whole lot of black men who came back home very broken, very decimated, and didn't have the same opportunities as John McCain when they came back. Mm-hmm.
But
when you think
what
about the amount of drugs that were taking place in Vietnam that they were giving the soldiers that's to sustain, and then how those drugs made their way back to this country. I mean, it's like a lot. And these are the things that they don't want taught in the history books because they think it makes America look bad. And the truth should make you look bad. The truth should just be the truth to give people an understanding of where we've come from and how far we've come and how far we've grown.
Well, there's a lot of money in perpetuating division. Whereas if we, now I'm not one of those people that say everybody should be able to put their hand in my pocket because we all united. Now, I'm not that one. You can't come stay in my house because I have many rooms. I'm not that one.
Right.
But the matter of the fact is, there's strength in unity. And the unity that we're going towards is inevitable. Nobody can stop it. But they want to keep the drama up as much as possible so they can feel like they're in control of something. Mm-hmm. And that's, like when I was watching you earlier, I was like, let me get on here. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. Let me speak life into you because I feel the pain, bro. And your daughter out here, and it's not the times that we thought we were creating for our children, just like our parents and great uncles and great aunts didn't think that this was the times that we would have to live through because they've been through it, and they thought that they was preparing us for something greater, something nicer, something more comfortable, and that's just not the way we are going into because there's so much pushback. There's so many people that saying, look, you're not going to replace us. And they're doing all these absurd behaviors and shouting all these absurdities. And it's like, instead of you understanding that, we're not here to replace you. We're here. We've been here for one, but we're joining together. And there's not enough emphasis placed on that. So when they had all those people out there speaking, they're not going to replace us. You won't replace us. It should have been just as much, if not louder, voices saying, we don't want to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We don't want to. We don't have to. We don't need to. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that's the kind of radicalization. I think Eddie mentioned it earlier. He said, I'll post up what he said because I think his comments are very valid. And I want to get back to this. He says, I worry because racial hate crimes are on the rise and conditioned brothers and sisters are assaulting and killing also. And we all know since Obama came into office, hate crimes, not only did gun sales go up, because remember, the propaganda was, my man Lionel Harris used that word propaganda that was in the 1920s that transformed into public relations. The propaganda was if Obama gets elected, he's going to take your guns. Mm-hmm. So everybody went out to buy all these guns, and Obama told them, like, I never said I was taking your guns. Like, it was all a fabricated lie. It was propaganda to get you to, one, vote against me, because over any policy issue, we know that America wants its guns. right? And when I see black people who are part of the NRA lined up with this thought, like they're coming for your guns, it's like, is that the only thing you really worried about? No, they coming for your Social Security, bro. They coming for your retirement accounts. They coming for your savings accounts. That's what the government is doing. Y'all,
Yeah, but they
wake up.
already got that money. What they
They
don't
do.
have is your money for buying guns, things that the products that they are producing, and that's their bottom line. That's affecting their bottom line. They have your money for Social Security. They have your money for all that other stuff. They have it. They will they relinquish it? That's the question. But they don't have the money that you are buying all these guns and you're investing in all these bullets and all these ammunition, all this stuff and suits of armor and stuff. That's the money. They don't care about nothing else. Whatever propaganda that gets them to increase their bottom line, which is why I wrote that comment in your earlier when I said the only reason why the schools can afford to keep doing what they're doing is because it's not affecting their bottom line. You're not talking their language. We can cry, we can moan, we can mourn our losses. It doesn't affect their bottom line because they still they money is still coming in the same, if not more, because now more people want to be educated.
Yeah, definitely. So I know this is Christian Men, Christian Walk, Christian Talk, but I do have on here Mrs. Tina Phillips. She is the host of her own show, which also takes place on Mondays at 6 Central Standard Time, called Android Living. And so that is who is here with me right now, and grateful to have her here. I always like to have the sisters on. I always like to have a woman's opinion for everything. And there's lots of reasons for that. And so there are times I've been accused of defending Black women too much. And my statement to that is, every household I was raised in, a woman was in charge. That comes with a level of automatic respect from me. And so I never like to judge any woman for any situation that she finds herself in. I'll speak on foolishness, like this rapper who's coming to Chicago. I think they said her show sold out in like 4 minutes. Her name is Sexy Red or something like that, but I'm not gonna even move to the music. I'm glad you're here, Miss Tina, because I want to talk about one. Me and Gary have not been on together, so I want to talk about the Alabama situation. So previously, I had Eddie on because he wanted to break down to me more about Jason Aldean than I knew, who wrote this song, "Try That in a Small Town," which skyrocketed to #1. And before we get into the song by Oliver Anthony that's out now, it's talking about rich men north of Richmond. Jason Aldean's song, "Try That in a Small Town." I'll give it credit for what took place in Alabama. Now one. Oh, he got his cowboy hat on too. I'm gonna put
See, this is the foolishness.
What's going on, y'all?
What's going on, Eddie? So, Alabama, I have not talked about it because I have not been on the air. And I think people have gotten the wrong impression of why Black people were cheering that happened at the Alabama docks. What we witnessed is something I think Minister Farrakhan was talking about a long time ago. I think that Malcolm X had been preaching about a long time ago. We saw an instance, because what happened there should have happened to the police officers with George Floyd, as far as I'm concerned. The citizens should have rushed them fools and stomped them out. Let's just call that what it is. They watched the man die after being choked and murdered for over 9 minutes, being asphyxiated. What I saw in Alabama was a sign that if it was a young person, I'm not sure how many folks would have got involved. Young people, they can be a little rough at times. And they could cause some things. What I saw was Black people like, wait a minute, that's uncle. That's cousin Pete. You're not gonna jump on cousin Pete. Sister Danae just said it. Enough is enough. And what we saw is one notion destroyed. If you thought black people couldn't swim, you saw my young man in the water. They called him Aquaman. You saw a unification of a people to defend an elder. You saw black women jump in, getting involved to pull the white women out of the situation, to handle them on their own, so no black man would have to put their hands on a white woman. I know Unc came with the chair at the end. Hey, sometimes, it happens. But I think we saw was that our pressure it's not just boiled over. The pot it's been running over for a long time. So when Eddie says he worries about the racial hate crimes that are on the rise, I mean, we're talking the young man, the demonically possessed and influenced white dude who was wrapped in a SWAT sticker, from what I'm understanding, went inside that store and killed them people, who was just turned away from an HBCU, not allowing this dude to come on campus. When you talk about last year, the North Carolina Agricultural and Technology School, where there was a dude who they arrested, and this guy had over 200 rounds of ammunition, and he got out on a $10,000 bond 2 hours later to go right back out on the street and do whatever he was going to do with nothing confiscated. Like, that is what we are up against. And so I know one of the Republican responses, one of the white conservative responses, one of the white evangelical responses is, well, there's black on black crime, and we don't see you all complaining about that, which is just a dumb racist statement. Let me just call that what it is, because we march in our cities. We do pray in our cities. Apostolic had a prayer this weekend. I had another young man who I partner with who was doing something in the community at another church, and they had over 150 kids show up to get book bags and food and things for school. So we are on the ground. But what we can't have is the white response that always, well, there's black on black crime too. Eddie, chime in.
There's white on white crime too. So why don't y'all respond with that one?
We can't talk about it.
The fact that can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
The fact that we categorize our crime is not something that it has its own historical background to it. But I was doing some when the whole thing happened in Montgomery, we know so much about Montgomery. We know about it because of obviously Dr. King and the busboy. We know all of these things that happen in the South. But the thing about Montgomery that stood out to me was that I think we forget the history behind Montgomery. Montgomery was it's huge for the civil rights movement, but it's also the place where the first national Memorial for Peace and Justice was established. That was in about 2017, I may be off, 2017, 2018, that they built that memorial. And they built that memorial to honor the people who had been lynched in Montgomery. Now, if you don't think that the people on that pier, the black folks who were there, are not aware of that, right? They are aware of what is in their town and in their place, right? Especially in Alabama. But when you look back and you think about the people who were lynched there, the Arthur St. Clair, the Jack Turner, the Fred Rochelle, amongst others, those names stick out because they're part of that memorial, right? Fred Rochelle was only 16 years old when he was burned alive, right? Killed and burned. So these things stand out. When we fail, I was watching some program the other day, and there were a lot of young black folks, young kids in Florida, talking about the importance of learning history and how they felt that, the reason why so many people are against teaching black history, for the lack of a better term, which is still American history, is because they don't want us to know this. See, because if you know this, if you could contextualize what happened in these areas, you are more than likely willing to stand up and say, no, this ain't gonna happen here, right? We've seen too much of this. But because we are allowing people, right, to play us. And I'm gonna tell you, people, I've been saying this lately, it's not just the conservative side, right? Rather you're a Democrat or Republican. If you're a racist, you're a racist.
Period.
If you don't want that information out, it ain't gonna get out. And as long as we have people sitting in legislatures across the country, both state and federal, who don't want that information out, we're going to continue to run into these problems. So we have to teach in the ways that we can. That memorial in Montgomery is a way of teaching and giving people an identifier of what happened in their town outside of what is a traditional civil rights movement, right? What we try to do on Erudition, what you guys talk about on here. We want to educate people to understand that if they're not going to get it in the schools, traditional schools, colleges even now, then we need to be able to provide it, right? Because we're getting to a point right now where they're legislating education to a point of stifling it. It's almost fascist in the way that it is being done.
Yeah. And
we're not book burning yet, but we are denying books. We're removing them out of the libraries. We're telling them what they can't read. You know, I watched somebody recently was saying that somebody said they didn't want the book Native Son because it demonstrates a black man raping and killing. But wait a minute. This is the same country who will put menace to society.
Come on.
Right?
Come on.
On film.
Come on.
Amongst all kinds of other gangster ghetto programs. Go watch Tubi and see anything you want to see that seems stupid and ignorant and violent. But you don't want us to go back and read black authors, black poets, black educators. We're losing ourselves, right? And it's not just black people. It's not just black young folks or older folks. It's the white folks too. Because some white kids would love to know about this history. They're surprised when they hear it. They're shocked.
Did you hear what Tom Hanks said when he found out about Oklahoma?
Yeah. They're shocked.
He was like, whoa, wait a minute. This happened in the United States?
Yeah.
Like he was completely blown away.
And Tina and me have always had this conversation where there are white people who don't like racism. There are white people who got black folks in their families. They're not racist. There are white people who participated in the Underground Railroad.
Absolutely.
There are white people who fought alongside blacks in the Revolutionary War. Yes. There are black folks you can go on and on and on and on.
Yeah. I would dare say the Underground Railroad would have been a failure without the assistance of white people, period.
Yeah, because somebody got to be able to hide you in a place where they not going to come beat on the door and come take you out of there.
And Tony, that's what I was saying. And I was just saying it again today on my show because I had just been talking to Eddie about it. And I was like, people don't understand. They have no idea why they're mentally conflicted with the actions and the thoughts that they're having. So the actions that they're seeing, they want to be alone to get along, but the mentality that they're fighting against it's saying this ain't right. We can't do this. This all of the ancestors were not for it, and even those that were appearing to be for it, they were doing things to get along, and some of them felt like this is what I got to do to get by. But it's not just about what those history books say. It's about what they omitted it saying, because a lot of those people, they would have agreed and they would have said, look, even though I went along with it and everything, the government, because even now you have it where the government says, well, back in the day, some black men couldn't be in the house and the woman wouldn't get the money, the government support if the black man was in the house. So it appeared as though black men were absent, but it was just an appearance. So the textbook can say what they want to say, but the testimonials are what's important. And that's the thing that's missing. And that's the part that's messing up everybody's mentality.
Yeah, well, the textbooks, here's the thing. There's a guy, Lowen, he just passed away during the pandemic. And he wrote many books, a white guy, trying to teach people about how about how we teach history in this country, and how we fail to teach it. And Professor Nolan, he spent majority of his adult life, and I often talk about all of our Black historians, the Carter G. Woodsons, the John Henry Clarks, and different folks who spent a great deal of their life trying to get our history in a way where it can be presented to us, and how much of it is ignored, right? How much of it is not shared. And unfortunately, a lot of it now has become fallacy, or as I like to call it, foolery, because we spend so much time talking about things that really didn't happen, right? Or we hyperbole, right? Exaggerate what did happen, that we remove ourselves from the ability to really talk about the facts. And one of the things that I said that I wanted to do when we did erudition was it got to be factual. I don't work in speculation, right? If I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to give you where you can go find it, so that you don't have to just take my word for it. And then the other thing is I'm going to try to pull out those things that are hidden. Hidden means it's not that it doesn't exist. It's just that you don't know where to go because it's been kind of cloaked from you. And it was annoying to me. And I don't mean to speak bad of my white historian brothers, but it was annoying to me. Every time I would turn around, I tell my son, and some white historian was like, hey, I found out, right? Because he had the ability to go someplace and go look for something that a lot of us Black people, right, Black historians, are not doing. I also call myself a public historian because of the fact I don't want to be assigned to a university or an organization that says to me that I can't tell you your history because I'm owned, my position is owned by this university. When I would ask the question, why don't I see a lot of Black historians getting out here and teaching our people? And then I realized because they can't. Because they've been told, no, you can't do that. You can't go on that program. You can't go to that church and teach these people. That's not the same as a W.B. Du Bois or Carter G. Woodson, right? Who weren't owned by Harvard, who said, okay, as W.B. Du Bois once said, when they talked to him about, well, you graduated from Harvard. You're the first Black man to graduate from Harvard. And he said, the honor is all Harvard's, right? We have to know our worth and who we are and what we need to teach. And if we could do that, then we'd be a better people. And we got to start in our homes, in our families. We have to start in those areas because they ain't going to teach you in these schools, these brick and mortars that everybody's running to. Even the colleges now are truncating what they're going to teach about African-American studies. Even in areas, sorry, my camera went crazy, but even in areas where they're HBCUs, they're trying to restrict, because you better remember, a lot of these HBCUs are in the South. We got to open up our minds, understand that education starts at home. I apologize to you about my camera. I don't know what it's doing.
It got confused because it's like you talking Black, but you're not wearing the uniform.
Are you saying I look like a hillbilly?
I don't know what you look like. That's what I'm saying. You waited till I was busy on here with Tony, and then you went and got dressed in some kind of costume, and I'm like, what in the world?
Teddy said I dressed like the Wichita Lineman.
Tony, I don't know why we can't hear you.
Because I muted myself. He said, why is Dad dressed like the Wichita lineman?
I'm still on the line.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
But you know,
to EOS utility. Before you speak, Tina, I know this is Christian talk, and I think one of the things where Christians get caught up in is that when they do tune in sometimes to the show, they want to hear about issues of faith and faith only, and we forget that the church is the foundation of the civil rights movement. And it Everything we're discussing, it's part of our faith, because that's how we were raised up in this country. It became a part of our faith. So we talk about these things. There's a Christian rapper named Lecrae.
I like him.
Lecrae said it wasn't until he started talking about social issues, he lost money. White churches canceled their contracts with him to come and speak to their young people or to come and rap and minister at their churches. They said you should just be focusing on the gospel, and they have no true understanding of what the gospel is.
Yep.
Right? That's the impact that this young man had to deal with when he started bringing up social issues. They didn't want him to, because when it comes to how you evangelize in this Eurocentric framework of Christianity that we live under, they only want you to talk about the gospel without the underlying tenets of the gospel. The good news of Jesus Christ, his death, burial, and resurrection. You cannot deal on that without dealing with the work and the hearts that he changed in his ministry. It's an impossibility for any Christian minister to only deal with the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ without dealing with the inner workings of his life and how he changed the world, not through military power, but through love. How he changed the hearts of men through love. You have to incorporate all of that work. And that means you have to go and walk where he walked, minister where he ministered, talk to who he talked to, and spend time with who he spent time with in order to understand the dynamics of the fullness of his ministry, to understand the fullness of his message that led to his sacrifice.
Well, I'm no theologian, but then the Bible says first natural, then spiritual. So we cannot separate the two. However, what I'm saying about the bottom line being affected in order to affect change or desirable change is also biblical, because the Bible says in business be men, and we are not. We're being emotional. We're being reactive instead of acting. We are responding, and it's tearing up the mentality of our people that we, in more than in other cultures, are in need of help mentally, because we it's like we're fighting the fight the wrong way and losing, and trying to figure out why that is. It is because we are fighting it the wrong way. You can't go in there guns a blazing. Back when my uncle Fred Shuttlesworth and Martin Luther King Jr. were in the South fighting, they said we can't fight this fight the way that you think we could fight it. We have to fight it by affecting their bottom line, affecting their visuals, affecting, because they wouldn't even put it on mainstream media. Mainstream media now is you and me. We are dictating the media, and it's going viral because of YouTube and other social medias, which they were trying to stop during Obama's reign. They said, no, y'all can't get on there and start doing that. But e-commerce was a thing long before Obama went into office, and it's very lucrative. YouTube is like, I don't care what they saying on there. Just like TikTok, I don't care what they saying on there. When we pull these people off who are saying something and they get all of this attention, now we have attracted more people that's going to come on, and more people mean more money. And this is their bottom line. So that's why they behave the way they do. They didn't do it because, oh, they don't want you to be heard. No, they did it to be controversial, to give more people more eyes and more money. But if we say, look, screw that, what we're going to do is we're going to have it our own network. Look at BET. They came in and took that too. But we allowed it. We keep allowing these things, and it's like every time we make room for it, we want to turn and say, well, let's talk about God. And God said first natural, then spiritual. And then we so ready to cast that to the side because we didn't do our part. Now we want to say, well, I'm just going to wait for God to. God didn't do that. God gave you the ability. He gave you the talents. And what you did with the talent, you are the one who buried it. Because you're sitting there talking about, well, let's go back and we're going to pray. God said faith without works is dead. You cannot say, I believe, I have faith and all this, but you're not doing anything to move toward that action. So God knows your heart. He know you ain't about nothing but no talking. Let me get some people who ain't about just talking, and they understand how to fight. You have to fight them with the money.
Frederick Douglass. I prayed that God would emancipate me until I started praying with my legs. That's not the whole. I know I missed some words in there, but I'm just quoting what he said to say that prayer is an action word. Mm-hmm. And he said, when I prayed with my legs, and my man Lionel Harris quotes it all the time on his inspirational radio show that's on WVON on Sunday mornings at 7 to 9. He said, when I started praying with my legs. And that's where God moves. Before we close the show out, I'm getting an echo, Eddie. That's why I muted you. I'm getting an echo from you all. I want to close out with this. Matter of fact, I'm going to let me know if you all can hear this, what I'm about to play. So you can't hear that. Okay, I have to figure out how to get that too. This roadcaster sometimes does crazy things. You can't hear the audio that I'm playing, and I'm not sure why.
There.
Can't hear that.
A little bit, yeah.
It's gone now.
Let me see.
Living in depression, forget it. I'm a blessings, I'm a mess and I'm bitter. And I just been in cause I'm better, my medicine just kicked in. Medication is making me better, yet sleepy. And when I don't take it, my fam says I'm creepy. I keep having flashbacks of childhood and trauma. Those things that I take, it just be my karma. No armor, I'm hoping, I'm making it, coping and jostle while hoping. I write without smoking, I don't do no joking, I'm serious off. When I share my heart, people say that I'm sorrow. I live in my silence, which led to self-violence. My mind is a riot, depression's my diet. My tears are not crying, my eyes are not drying. Emotions are high and I'm longing for quiet. My smile is my frown, I'm feeling so down. The rain from my pupil has led to my drown. My smile, my frown, my pupil, I drown. I ain't wrapped too tight, living in depression, forget it. I'm a blessings, I'm a mess and I'm bitter. But I just grin in cause I'm better, my medicine just kicked in. I ain't wrapped too tight, living in depression, forget it. I'm a blessings, I'm a mess and I'm bitter. But I just grin in cause I'm better, my medicine just kicked in. It's the ones that you love, that trust you the most, are also the ones that cut you the most. When you have no voice, they come for your throat. They borrow your money, then pray you go broke. You lifting them up while they tearing you down. You kicking and screaming, they cannot be found. It's all about them, so when you are in need, they either walk by or they just let you bleed. I'm better alone, just me and my thoughts. These pills that I swallowed are making me cough. I'm crying in sorrow, this journey so hollow. I'm fading to black, will I be here tomorrow? I'm trying to hold on, I do not feel strong. I know I leave counseling that I wait too long. See 6 of my homies, their hands on the handle. I see all my ancestors greet me with candles. I ain't wrapped too tight, living in depression, forget it. I'm a blessings, I'm a mess and I'm bitter. But I just grin in cause I'm better, my medicine just kicked in. I ain't wrapped too tight, living in depression, forget it. I'm a blessings, I'm a mess and I'm bitter. But I just grin in cause I'm better, my medicine just kicked in. Sometimes I wanna curl up, man, drink till I earl up. I told I've been too much, like a little late, I come through in the clutch. I can't sleep, scared to blink. Will light pass by me if I wink? My eyelids pried open, I can't dream. Fear him, mouth wide open, can't scream. Conundrum, man, you bless what's wrong. I'm stumbling, real man, you must be strong. I'm tumbling, oh, you ain't got no faith. I'm rumbling, you depressed, you can't be saved. Ain't nowhere safe but the bridge to the cliff. close to the edge with a push or a slip. One in the chain, but don't need a whole clip. Mental health is the curse, but the pen is the gift. I ain't wrapped too tight, living in the presence. So depression, forget it. I'm a blessing, I'm a mess, and I'm bitter. Just great ain't because I'm better, my medicine just kicked in.
Nice.
I wanted to end tonight talking about mental health, counseling, and prayer. I am going to probably release that song hopefully within a month and a half. I saw a post yesterday from a friend of mine I used to work with 2 days ago. On Saturday, he said, you know, I'm at a point I'm just ready to end it all. And of course, I mean, within minutes, like this dude has not showed up on my feeds in months. When he puts this up, it shows up on my feed. I don't know if it's because of the work I've talked about on this show with mental health. He's still with us. He put a post up the next day that just says, man, I really appreciate y'all just showing up for me. I got up the other night, couldn't sleep. I got out of bed, came downstairs, and I didn't even know what to pray. I'm just being 100. But I got this book by Jermaine Copeland called Prayers That Availeth Much. And before I even cracked it open, I said, Lord, I don't even know what I'm feeling or know what to pray. You provided a tool that I'm going to use tonight to help me facilitate my prayer. And I pray that you just receive it as I recite it aloud. And it's amazing peace that I felt. I know whenever I get something, it's for me, but it's not about me. It's about who God has called me to reach. And Eddie, me and Mike haven't connected yet, but we've talked before about men in our age range who've just been getting bombarded with emotions of not feeling accomplished enough, to retire, don't see a future possible without working till your bones are broken, you know, not being involved in the stock market early enough, not understanding investment strategies. And then when you combine that with the pressure of social media that tells you if you don't do this, it's because you didn't take the time to learn. And all those things could be true, but because it's so accessible now, and you get the picture of wealth that people present. There's a rapper from Chicago who just got arrested and charged for credit card fraud, for filling credit cards, cracking credit cards to go on these jet flights and do tours and all this stuff. It's an illusion of a lifestyle that was there. One, what are your thoughts on the song? Two, what are your thoughts on how our faith and belief in Christ, how do we get from Saul to David? It comes in terms of battling depression. If y'all got time, I'd like to close on those areas. I'm gonna be quiet. Y'all can speak.
I would tend to go first on that because she speaks about that a lot.
Okay, then I'm gonna unmute my mic and you mute yours.
Am I muted? Okay.
Because that mic picks up everything. So
my mic is pretty.
Yeah, that mic pretty good, bro. That mic.
That's loud.
I bet y'all like 30 feet from each other, 40 feet, and that mic is good, bro. You can hear a pin drop in that house.
It is loud, and then Eddie talks very loud, so that together is like wow. That I heard that song, and that's deep. It's deep. I hear a lot of pain. I hear hope, but I do hear a lot of pain. I hear, questions being asked. They're seeking answers, and I hear the word depression thrown around a lot. And we got to live through it. We got to live through it to see another day, to see the point in time, because at the appointed time we will see what God has for us. But if we allow the devil to fool us in between time, in the meantime, with all the glamour, the glitz, and the deception, then we will lose out, because we ourselves with our free will forfeit our inheritance. This is something that it's our name on it. It belongs to us, and the only one that can take it from us is us, by our own free will, our choices. So you got to understand, the hell you going through is not the end. And if you can live through it because you didn't allow anybody to deceive you and give you, put you in a position where you give up your inheritance, which is also a biblical thing. It happened in the Bible, and he thought he was going to get it back. No, you didn't gave it up. You forfeited it. It's no longer yours. So you have to understand, once you inherit something, you have to hold on to it. And what is it that you inherited? You inherited anything you want in this world you could ask for. It's a part in the Bible. I'm not a theologian. I don't like to quote things, but it was a part in the Bible where it's like I can hear God crying. He's saying, well, he doesn't understand why we would ask the devil and expect of the devil, who does not love us, to give us the things we're asking for, when there's a God who loves us and who wants us to be happy. Why are you not asking me and expecting of me and waiting for me to give it to you? Whether the world, I said it on my show today, whether the world is sitting here trying to force God to hurry up and come back, force God to hurry up and give him his your blessings, force God to, you force the end, because all these people want to come in and they want to go down in history as being the one who scorched the earth. They want to be the ones who go down in history as to bringing the apocalypse to happen. It's not in our control. A lot of things aren't in our control, but there's a part in the Bible where it says that you have to have peace with the things that you can't control and cannot control, and accept the things that you can't control. And those things that you have ability to control, God gives you the ability to control some things, but not all things. But if he gives you the ability to control some stuff, that's what you control. And that's what you have to grasp hold to understand, that it's okay. It doesn't stop you from being a man. It doesn't stop you from being a woman, because sometimes you have to say, Jesus, take the wheel, or God, I don't know what I'm going through, but I trust you. And at that appointed time, I am sure that you're going to deliver me. God don't always spare us and deliver us. Sometimes it's either or. And we have to be okay with that and grasp what we can while we can, because he also gives us some peace in the midst of it while we're waiting. So I like the song. I hope that young man gets the word that he's seeking. You have to quiet yourself. You have to fast. You have to pray.
I should know, in case you didn't catch the voice. That's me rapping.
Oh, okay, yeah. You already know. You already know. Then you got
That's
to
me.
fast.
That's me rapping. I mean, it's like I'm a hip hop dude, so I tell people I write music to scratch hearts. I don't write music to itch ears. That's me. I deal with the deep things. I deal with can be considered the dark things, because until you expose darkness, you can never know light. Right? And
yeah, but you gotta dwell on some positive. You gotta laugh more. You got to enjoy life more. It's something about us that when we are. That's why God gave us joy. And he didn't just give us happiness. He gave us joy, because it's not something that's happening, but it's joy. So I'm laughing, I'm loving, I'm enjoying. I'm like, wow, this is a very depressing time, but I'm sitting here cracking jokes. It's a coping mechanism at the same time as it was important. If it wasn't important, if it wasn't significant, God wouldn't have made the separation between joy and happiness.
Yep. Very valid. Very valid. Eddie, what you got? Hold on. Let me unmute you. Unmute, Eddie.
Oh, I didn't know if y'all muted me. I muted myself. I didn't remember. Can y'all hear me? Am I good?
Yep.
Okay. I was watching Tina's show earlier today. She had Pastor Sarton on, and I some of these things they talked about a little bit today. And I found myself today quoting a lot of St. Augustine. St. Augustine, and one of the things that St. Augustine said was, and I paraphrase, but he was saying how, he read all of the great thinkers, Plato, Cicero, and all of them, and these wise men who said very beautiful and wonderful things. But he said he never heard or read any of them say, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden." And that is a great quote from St. Augustine, because what he's really saying there is that when it all comes down to it, everything we're dealing with, it comes down to God, right? It comes down to God. I think on her show I had said, and I'm going to say it again here, to be confused, to be depressed, to have emotion, that's a human reality. But God gave us the ability to learn, discern, and retain. That's the joy that He gives us. That's what gets us through. And we have to open ourselves to God and let Him direct us. If a lot of the people, if you consider the fact, and I'm always going to historically hit it. If you consider the fact of all of the slaves and the people who went and watched their family members killed, raped, and murdered, and didn't know if they was going to see next day, unless it was at the behest of some other person, African Americans particularly, and I speak particularly, we have issues with post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a major issue. PTSD means that you have witnessed or experienced a traumatic event. There's not one Black person in this country that I have ever met or heard from that didn't see a traumatic event. If somebody calls you out of your name and separates you as an other, that's a traumatic event. The moment you realize that somebody is treating you as an other based on your racial identifier, that's a traumatic event. And the prevalence of PTSD in our community is so strong that among African Americans, it's up to about 10% of it has the highest rates in the country. And African American women have higher rates than men. The suicide rates are shooting up because of all of that is going on. And as we go into this thing where people are Black men and Black women who are educated, prayerful, going to church, and still when they go to their jobs, still being reduced, still being objectified, still being insulted. Those are traumatic events. And at least we lean on God.
Yes.
We will not make it through that. And our ancestors understood that. And let me tell you something. They went through worse than what we're going through now.
Yes.
When your babies are yanked out of your arms, when your wife is killed in front of you, you can't do nothing to stop it. And all you want to do, read the narratives, is want to die. But you can't die because you got babies. You got other folks that depend on you. It is the truth of our existence in this country. But what they did know, and y'all mentioned Frederick Douglass earlier. Frederick Douglass said the thing he missed, if anything he could say that he missed about the plantation, was the voices of his people singing to God. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. That I can't even imagine what that cry and that singing was.
Because only God, Tony, only God can move us out of that depression, out of that drama, out of this pain. So when and looking at that from a Christian point of view, psychological point of view, a historical point of view, when you merge all that together, it's why we need to know our history. We need to seek our God, and we need to know what is affecting us. Right? Is not greater than the God that protects us.
That's good. That's good. That's good. When you talk about history, my wife will be teaching a homeschooling group. She's only doing it once a week. I think she has like 2 students so far who parents signed up.
Okay.
She gets an email from a lady in the UK.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, well, I'm teaching African American history. She was just like, yeah, I understand what you're teaching. I want my kids to know that too. I want my kids to be well-rounded about Africans throughout. She's African, but she lives in London.
Yes.
I want my kids to know about the entire diaspora.
Yes.
So our people are going through in every country, on every continent. I want my children to be aware of that. And I was sharing with my wife just the vision and impact of that, of what your homeschooling digitally can be.
And that's why I love homeschool, because it's a network of people, and they, in essence, get a better quality education than these brick and mortar schools, because they're free. They're free to teach, and they're free to learn, and they're free to go wherever they gotta go in order to get that education. I love homeschooling.
God allows things, so I'm going to call it a regret because I don't know how to express it better. Let me put it that way. But we stopped homeschooling after 8th grade. And that was mainly because I didn't feel, I felt my daughter needed something different. So when you start getting into the physics and the chemistries and all of that, and the school that we had her in a virtual charter school. It got shut down by the state of Illinois. So that school couldn't even stay open anymore. Or we would have kept her in. I had a goddaughter who finished at that school. We were looking forward to that for our daughter as well, through high school. But I say that to say it is one of the things I kind of regret, because we were able to my wife incorporated Bible study into they started their day with devotional. They started their day with devotional writing from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. And so I know, being an empty nester now, why my wife feels what she feels, because when I say she poured into that child for 10 straight years, from pre-K all the way up, heck, from 1 year old, from months all the way up. When my daughter was 3, she could recite every state capital, every president, every vice president. She could run that stuff off. She loved maps. Right? And then you just hope, like, as she's older now, she'll start to remember and recall some of these things just from digging into that muscle memory that the brain has. Like today, I found myself with a couple of coworkers fixing an issue, and we were talking about Dewey Decimal System. We were talking about how we had to work for research. We were talking about microfiche, microfilm. We were talking about overhead projectors. And then I was like, man, I'm old. I'm talking about, but it was the things that we had to work for, what they have at the click of a button now.
They got all of that at the click of a button. Let me tell you something, Tony, before we get off of here.
Yeah.
I admire your wife for doing that, because, I have been, for the better part of a couple of months now, trying to create a course, because I know that we are struggling, and it is not just America.
Yeah.
It's worldwide.
Yeah.
We have been misinformed. How did Malcolm say it? Bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray.
Yeah.
And we don't know anything about early man. We don't know we follow the multiracial myth. We don't really know genetics. We don't really, we allow Darwinism into our biblical understanding without really understanding what Darwinism really is. And even if you don't understand that, you can't even get into African interpolation. You can't get into oral tradition. You can't get into any of that if you don't even understand where some of this information is coming from. And so we have to get to a point where we had to start to teach, and homeschooling is the way, right? Homeschooling basically is what everybody starts at anyway. Yeah. Everybody should start at home. When Du Bois wrote Souls of Black Folks, he talked about how he went to go teach. He went to go teach these people in a poor, impoverished community, and that the parents, because he had to stay at these homes, they didn't have a place for him to stay. He stayed at their homes. They would feed him, and that they would sit at the table and they would learn together, and that the parents would participate in the learning with the kids. That's homeschooling, right? So that we can all learn something. He left, came back 10 years later, and some of those kids who were going to just be farmers and sharecroppers, they remembered him. Some had left, some had died. But the memory of being taught, right? That memory is strong, and it is needed. When I sit down with my son the other day, we're talking about presidents, watch something on presidents, and I can recite all these presidents: George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. Just go through all these presidents, right? And then tell you the history of them. It's important that you know that, but at the same time, it's important that you understand how your people that look like you, played into the lives of these people.
Absolutely.
Into the lives of this country. So I just wanted to double stomp on that. It is so important that we do that, because if we can do that, maybe we wouldn't have all these kids out here giving their lives away to learning on the street because they don't feel that there's anything worthwhile learning in the classroom.
It is the biggest challenge of our lives. But hey, beautiful people, I want to thank y'all for tuning in to Message Monday on tonight. I know it wasn't your typical deep down, get into Bible lesson, and me and Gary really don't go that deep into stuff like that. On occasion we do, but definitely glad to check in with you all. I'm definitely glad to have Mr. and Mrs. Phillips here, who have their own show. So I will give them time to talk about their shows on Monday and their show on Thursday and the show of the boys that comes on as well. So please do that.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. It's Eddie's network, so and a helpmate does her job, so I do what I do. But I want to definitely say, your wife got it right. She got the assignment. You start and you end, and even in the middle, you put God in it, and God will take control. That's why it is so effective. Homeschooling is so effective because it doesn't push God out. And a lot of traditional brick and mortar schools, when they had God in it, the same was said for them. And mostly it went to being private school. So those private schools began to get a little bit more popular and effective teaching because they had that where they pushed God out of the public school, and the public school went haywire. But anyway, on Adroit Living, I don't want to make you go over your time, but Adroit Living takes place on the Erudition Network. It is a session where I conduct live interactive shows where people could come on, they can comment, and some people even request various topics, and I speak on that, such as topics like coping with mourning, coping with loss, and how to mourn, diabetes, also with business, because I am an industrial organizational psychologist, and psychology has always been the root of my understanding. And some people may get a little upset with me when I start to relate all these things to a faith understanding, and it's not just a particular title of faith or religion, but it's a faith, period. So it is both Eastern and Western faith. But I talk about it because people have to understand the objective perspective, which is fact-based, and subjective perspective, which is our opinions, and they need to see the correlation so that they can have a holistic understanding for healthier mental well-being, so that they can move in a little bit freer, move a little bit more light, and despite whatever your diagnosis or prognosis is, you can still live in the moment and have that joy. Despite anything else, that joy is still there. So as you may cry because something's wrong or something's happening that's bad, you'll still maintain that joy, and that joy will give you that foundation of mental health that you need. So that's why I do what I do.
And you do that when?
On Mondays. And you have to ring the bell. You have to subscribe, because sometimes I just move as I'm led to go. And if I see a need and someone says they're going to come on the show and they want to talk about XYZ and I'm led to do it, I'm going to do it. And it's gonna run for as long as it's gonna run. You can catch us later and watch it on fast forward or whatever you gotta do.
Right.
But get the messages, because it challenges trending perspective, but it's for a purpose. We're called right now the signs are showing us we are being urged to return to our right mind.
Thank you, Brother Eddie.
All right. So I just wanted her to talk about Adroit Living, but Adroit Living is on the Erudition Network. The Erudition Network is a network that basically is it is designed to provide instruction, teaching, and help and mentorship and all of those things that Tina just talked about that she does on Adroit Living. But what it also does, we try to provide different perspectives. My sons are on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on a show called Erudition Generations, where I have 4 sons that are at different levels of life, to adults, 2 that are still in one to go into high school, first year high school, and 1 in middle school. So they all give their perspectives on what's going on, especially as young Black men and what we're living in this society right now. I do a show on Thursdays. I try to do it every Thursday where it is an interactive Black history and knowledge session. And that's exactly what it is. I try not to get down and do a hardcore lesson every Thursday, but I want you to come on and interact, ask questions. I want us to delve into the history together, because if people ask questions about history or what they don't know or what they heard, and we can try to, strip and get into the onion of that, we usually found what is foolery and what is fact, right? And so that's really what that is about. And also just to teach us our history and to move us out of what is hidden. We have many different ways of doing that now. Recently, we just started, you will see a lot of traffic is starting to go into the Erudition Network group, the session group, because I'm putting a lot of emphasis in going in there because of what StreamYard was doing, but also because I want it to be a place where people can go ask questions, seek help. I'll throw questions in there sometimes just to get people to start talking and thinking. People drop questions. I think you dropped something in there recently, Tony. But I want us to talk about our history. And I want us to talk about it in a safe place where people can feel that their opinions and their thoughts can be expressed. From a religious, from a non-religious, secular, however you feel about it, let's talk about it. So that's what the Erudition does. And like I said, we're on different times. But if you want to hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on YouTube. You can find us, looking for the Erudition Network, and you'll find us.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Cool, man.
Family, y'all know we always close out in prayer.
Yep.
The book I mentioned, Prayers That Availeth Much, it is a resource. That's what it is. It's a resource, and it has a script after each prayer. It has all the scripture, because you cannot pray on emotion. You have to pray the word, because the word is what divides soul and spirit. You got to pray the word. That's what is going to change things in our lives, no matter what state you're in. And so one thing I know we don't do a lot of is talk about depression in the Bible, because it's there. David's early purpose was to play music. And so that just lets you know that music is designed to do things. And just like it could dispel spirits and dispel and change moods, what other spirits certain music can bring on. And so think about that. But it's there. But at the end of depression, at the end of Elijah, after one of the greatest triumphs in his life with the prophets of Baal, and then he runs and hides up under a juniper tree, depressed. And at the end of that, God shows up. Josh shows up. Like, dude, really? You running after? Well, you running after what I just did? God always shows up. John never leaves nor forsakes. But Sister Phillips says something very important. If you let the enemy twist the truth, he will snuff you out of here if he can. You got to fast. You got to pray. Got to study, got to fast, got to pray, got to study, and then you got to find the joy in life. Part of that hook, my buddy said, forget about my blessings. I'm a mess. We choose to forget about what God has done. We choose because we want to dwell on that side, and that could be just generational, deep down generational stuff. But for my life, I know for a fact the Lord has always shown up. And this is why I tell you, I know Yeshua, Jesus is real, and nobody can tell me otherwise, because my experience with him will always supersede my knowledge of the infinite. My experience with the Lord is that he has been faithful, and he has done exceedingly and abundantly above all I could ever ask or think. We got hit with a financial situation, and had he not provided a scholarship for my daughter, it would have been challenging. But he always provides. May not be what I want, may not be the way I like it, but he always provides. And that's what you got to cling on to. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but at the end of a thing, there it is. That's where God shows up. May the peace of God, which passes all understanding, guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. This is your boy Tony B from Message Mondays. Christian men, Christian walk, Christian talk, where the sisters are always welcome. From Tony B, from Gary Dotson, from Tina and Eddie Phillips, we out of here, fam. Peace.